Hello. Hello, Raichu. I don't have to guess that, Silver. That's a trap. I know better. I guarantee you that's a trap. Hello. Hello, Wiggly Phantom. Snick. The 80 kids look today. I was born in the 90s, so this is more of a 90s look than an 80s look. If it was, I wouldn't know. I wasn't around during the 80s. My siblings were. But I think they would agree this is more of a 90s look. Hello, Tofu. Watch me carry around the skateboard. Hello, P Squirrel. P Squirrel 3D. A 3D P Squirrel. Pesquirrel. There is an answer to that, Raichu. It's called Watch My VOD on YouTube. Support me. Leave likes and a comment and subscribe on YouTube. And you'll find the answer there. Spoiler alert, I'll tell you right now. When I talked about you guys in Low Ink, I said you guys did a really horrible job. I was extremely disappointed. And I said that you guys should take your Gamma Bracket trophy and throw it out the window. That's exactly what I said, word from word. Word from word. Or you could just watch the VOD on YouTube and see for yourself if I'm lying or not. Digging the hat? Thank you. I dug it as well. But it's nice to know that other people find it diggable too, I guess. Everyone's I won't dox what my job is, but there's some competition with my job, and we set a goal to be like the best at our job in the month. And they give out like you're the best team, or you're the best department for the week or something like that. And we got that award. And I went to my staff and I said, I showed up the award. It was like a little piece of paper. It was like, this means we're on track to take care of our goal, right? And they're like, yeah. And I was like, but this isn't the end goal. Like, we want more than this, right? So this means nothing to us. And they said, yeah. So I ripped it up right in front of their faces. I was like, this means nothing then. Gamma bracket means something though. Don't get rid of your gamma bracket. That's awesome. Congratulations. What divs am I going to recap? Everything except for Fantasy versus Rising Matrix. That game was that match was completely boring, uninteresting in every way possible. And that's the only match of all 320 teams that I'm not going to talk about. Hello, Fairy. Yeah, the main focus today is going to be 5 through 8, but there are like a few select situations from X through 4 that interested me that I wanted to talk about to some extent. I can't recap the entire week of all 320 teams. Like, that's not gonna happen. I don't have that much time in the day. I mean, like, even today's episode, I feel like there's still more research and more things I could do, more VODs I could watch to make this one better, much less. If I did like an X through 8 entirety episode recap, the quality of that episode would just be garbage, and I wouldn't be satisfied with it. So if I'm not satisfied with it, then that's all that really matters to me. Wait, what do you mean free agent life now? I saw Pony left. Did you leave too? What's up with RM? When you have Outback Zones as Game 9 in your RM? Oh, okay. Well, I won't ask. This probably isn't the format to ask about that, but sorry to hear that. I'm sure plenty of teams would be interested in having you. You'd be here for 6 hours if you reviewed all of Luti. I believe Prius does, actually, review all of Luti. Or he did last season, and he did a preview. I don't know if he's done like a week 1 recap yet or not, but his usually like what, 3 hours maybe? But I go to my work right after this, like almost right after this. So there is a time limit that I can go over, or that I can't really go over. So trying out for some teams though, that's good. Try out for Avalanche. Don't try out for Avalanche. Those guys are toxic. They protested doing turf war in a tournament once. I have turf as a counter. No, turf war was game 1 of a best of 3. I did get some DMs about that from the staff of that tournament, because apparently they looked back over the it was counterpick, so they looked back over the Battlefy chat logs to see what maps were counterpicked just for their data, and they saw that, and one of the head TOs of that tournament DM'd me just like the squinting eyes, like sus emote. It's just like, look, man, I'm not playing an SAC rival team in a best of 3 set with game 1 being freaking turf war. Like, that's not gonna fly. I'm not doing that. I'm sorry. Hell no. I think it was Anchovy too. It was like turf war Anchovy, and we just walked through it beforehand because we had a little bit of a break. So we just walked through it 2v2 turf war Anchovy. And at the end of it, I was like, this is dumb. I'm not doing this. Let's just ask them if they want to do one of the Splat Zone maps. Just like, I think there were like 10 maps in the pool, and I just set them to those 10 and just let God decide which one of them it was. And it was like, I just remember after that walkthrough of Anchovy Turf War, just being so angry. It was like, this, I hate this. Let's not do this. We had a good strategy though. I think, you know, like with Anchovy, you got to make sure you paint your like side platforms. I think we wanted to do that first and like build up missiles and fire missiles and stuff like that. But as I was just walking through, I was like, I don't want to play this. I don't want to win here, and I sure as heck don't want to lose here. So I ain't about that. But then again, that's just on me not reading the rules of the tournament or reading the format of the tournament. I believe game 1 of grand finals in that tournament was like Princess Diaries or something. And I'd be fine with turf war if, well, no, actually I wouldn't be fine with turf war. It's just like, I don't know how to play competitive turf war. Like it's not, we would have to actually scrim that and practice that a few times. And I don't want to do that. And there's nobody else that would want to do that either, unless there's practicing for like a turf war only tournament. But I don't know, I'm going on a long rant about nothing. It comes down to the last 30 to 15 seconds. That is true. You can't convince me otherwise. You can't. I mean, that's like, it's not entirely out of the realm of possibility. Thank you for the follow, Saku. Out of the realm of possibility that what you do in the first 2 minutes can affect things over the course of the long run, but like, you can be in danger in the last 10 seconds, and if you get a wipe, you win the game. Like, tell me that's not, convince me that doesn't matter. Like, if you get a wipe at the beginning of the match, that means nothing. You get a wipe at the last 10 seconds, you win the game, even if you're in danger in some situations. Don't sit here and tell me that that's a good mode. It ain't, at least for competitive. Screw it. We're not doing Luti recap this week. We're just going to talk about turf war for an hour and a half. Buckle up for that. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Popcast. Whenever you're listening to this, whether it be live or a VOD, Twitch or YouTube, while you're registering for Sunday's Cloudburst tourney on in-game TV, releasing an online mode for a game that came out 3 years ago, just now releasing online mode for it, playing your Luti sets on Monday, just 16 hours after the maps even got released. Whatever it is that you're doing right now, I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to listen to this. Unless I don't. One thing I do want to plug, the Twitter account that I use to help look at a lot of the VODs of some of the matches I'm going to be talking about today. A lot of the VODs of matches that ended up going 5-0, 5-1, and none were really interesting to look at. But nonetheless, this Twitch account called Luti Promos. No underscore, no fancy lettering, anything like that. Just straight up Luti Promos. Is a good source to use if you're just looking to watch some stuff on Luti. That there are streams of people post. They just kind of retweet every single stream somebody posts that has something to do with Luti. That's not the only place you can go to find Luti streams. Obviously, the Luti Discord server I used a lot for today's episode as well. A lot of people posted things in there. I don't typically like to post or endorse things on the Popcast that I don't really know a heck a lot about, like who's behind. I don't know who's behind Luti Promos. It could be somebody associated with Luti. It could be a total jackass for all I know. Sometimes some of these accounts get a little weird and out of left, just completely go off the rails. See the Splatoon News, not the good Splatoon News account, but the one with like the pink or purple logo that'll just oftentimes just drop ridiculous political commentary that they know is just there to get people's reactions and get people riled up because they think it's funny. So I'm always hesitant when I don't know who's behind something to endorse it, but this seems harmless enough. They're just retweeting Luti Promos. If they go completely off the rails, don't blame me. Just unfollow them. I'm sorry. I don't control these kinds of things. Today, we are going to be talking about Luti. Week 1. The Season 11. We're going to dip into a few matches from Div X to Div 4, just some things that I just kind of noticed that I felt like are worth mentioning on a grand scale. But the main focus is going to be Div 5 through 8, and we're going to look at literally every single match that was played, not in like excruciating detail, but we are going to sit down and look at it. Full disclosure, I still don't have a good overlay for this. I need to sit down and basically I need to convert this window. The box that you're looking at me right now is in like 560 to 800 or something like that. I need to morph this to be like 1080 whatever, the one that my monitor is actually at, so I can just show it here. But the overlay is going to look like crap. But if you've made it to this point in the video, you probably don't care anyways. Thanks for watching. We'll try to make it a little bit cleaner next week, but it will get the job done this time around. But first, many of you played in your first Luti set ever in your entire life this past week. How was it? It was a little bit different, wasn't it? I bet you a good chunk of you probably realized and found out pretty quickly this is not something that you can relate to in the entire community. It's a little bit different. The best way I could describe it is it's like playing in a grand finals with all the pressure of playing in the grand finals without the buildup of knowing that you've earned your way to grand finals. You know, sometimes you make it to a grand finals of a tournament and you don't win it, but on the back of your mind, you're like, you know what? The journey to get there makes it all right. Like maybe you had a deep run in a loser's bracket. Maybe you upset a lot of teams in winner's bracket to get there. Like you might not be happy that you lost, but you're still in the back of your mind thinking, we earned our way to grand finals, and that's kind of a satisfying feeling. Luti matches are that without that satisfying feeling. Losing a Luti match sucks. It sucks really, really hard. Winning a Luti match is the most incredible feeling you'll ever get in this community, short of winning a tournament. The risk and reward of a Luti match is so high and low that it can be a bit of an emotional roller coaster as you go throughout your best of 9 sets. It's not like any tourney you've ever played in. In a normal tourney, you just kind of wait for the next round to start, whether it's Swiss or groups or whatever, and then you find out who your opponent is. And then you're like, okay, well, what are the 3 maps we play our opponents in right now? And then you get into your game and you start your game 5 minutes from there. This time around, you have a whole week, or if you're day old sushi and unlighted, a whole 12 hours to figure out your opponent and what you want to do differently, what your strategy is going to be, what your roster is going to be. You can plan out script by script. I used to do this a couple of seasons ago until I was just like, well, maybe I don't want to invest my entire life into figuring out exact game plans for every single second of every map. But you could. And some of you have done this, I'm sure. You have a game plan. All right, this person is in for game 3. This person sits out for game 5. Here's the comps we're expecting them to use because we watch their VODs because they stream their scrims like idiots. And here's how we're going to counter everything that they do. That's a level of strategizing that you can't do in a tournament setting unless it's a team you're already familiar with. Most of the time in a tournament, it's just, oh, here's this opponent. We got 3 games to beat them. Let's go do it. It's a completely different ball game. And somebody asked me, who is a student who isn't watching me live right now, like a lot of delinquents in chat are right now, for a TLDR, was I surprised by anything this Luti season? Not exactly. I would say no. I'm not exactly surprised. This is my 5th Luti season that I have been a participant in. Nothing surprised me anymore. You saw teams that won their matches in Luti this week that lost to that same exact team just over the last weekend in Low Inc. It's a completely different setting. You'll see teams that traditionally beat one team lose to them in Luti, that traditionally beat them in some other tournament. It's almost a completely different sport. I've said this before. When skill level is equal, strategy always wins. The team with the better strategy always wins, and Luti is 100% about strategy. So as those of you who've got through your first ever Luti set, won or loss, here's what I want you to take away. A lot of teams typically drop after the first week of Luti. A lot of teams drop as soon as they get their div. But more so, I think the most you see a team, the biggest stretch of time that you usually see a team drop is after the week 1, and it's always a team that loses. Because it feels so horrible. I get that. Losing feels like the end of the world in a Luti set. I want to warn you about this, though. You signed up. You knew what you were signing up for, or you should have known what you were signing up for. This shouldn't be a secret. You got to commit to it, and you got to see it out. I'm challenging all of you. Do not drop from Luti just because you lost your first week. Now, people drop because of schedule conflict. They don't realize how it's demanding this is for your schedule or just whatever reason. I understand that. But if the sole reason you're dropping is because your butt hurt that you lost week 1, I'm going to tell you something. You look soft. You look so soft to everybody when that's the reason that you drop. You committed to something, challenge yourself, and try to see it all the way through to the end of the season. You might not make the playoffs. But first off, I do want to point out, in most of these situations, because a lot of teams have dropped at some groups and it makes things crazy, no matter what you did in week 1, you still control your own destiny. The team that beats you could go undefeated and win your group, but if you go 4-1, you can still make the playoffs. So no matter who you are, nobody, I think, is technically mathematically eliminated from the playoffs just yet. So stick it out. It's a learning experience. Iron sharpens iron. Don't give up. And don't be soft. With that being said, let's take a look at a few matches from X through 4 that we're going to talk about briefly, and then we'll get into the low-level stuff. In Div X, there's one match we want to talk about. Starburst beat Rose 5-0. This was the talk of Twitter when it happened. And it shouldn't surprise you that Starburst beat Twitter 5-0, but the reaction some people gave is kind of interesting, I guess, to say the least. Some people were clowning on Rose for getting destroyed 5-0 by Starburst. But here's what I want you guys to understand here. First off, the people clowning on Rose, were they low-level people? Yes. Does skill level in this really mean anything? No, like, whether you're good or bad at the game, it doesn't excuse you being a jackass in any situation. We're all human beings, and there's no real need to point out things like that. On the flip side, when you're at the very top of this community, people are going to say things about you. Whether you deserve it or not, you're putting yourself in that position. People are going to talk about you. It's just going to happen. I understand that what I do here on the Popcast is basically talking about other people. And eventually, I probably already have, I'm going to say something that pisses off somebody else, and they're going to say something about me. In fact, I already know this has happened. Some people have already said things about me in negative light. That's what I get for putting myself out here. I understand that. That's the, if I can't handle it, then I should just stop doing it, you know? But on the flip side, the 5-0 result, does this mean Rose is a bad team? No. Are you kidding me? Here's what I want you guys to understand about Div X. Just because you're Div X doesn't mean you're equal. These guys, there's like 3 teams in Div X that are just on a completely different spectrum of everybody else in that div. There's nothing you can really do about that. What what you should take away from this is just how far apart the tippity top of the competitive scene in North America, or the West, I guess you should include Europe, the West of competitive Splatoon is from just like everybody else. It's just, like if you were to look at that pyramid that K-Bot talked about, like there's like a extra, like a mile above that is just a tower up top that's way above the pyramid. And that's where the upper end of Div X is. So yeah, you're going to see some more uncompetitive games in Div X. But if you think that means that teams like Rose are bad, oh boy, you are a moron. Let's dip back down, skipping Div 1 and Div 2, even though I guess there are some Rising Matrix Fantasy Team fans here. That looked like a good set from the final score, but we're going to Div 3 because we're talking about 8th Year versus OFBO, who lost, or 8th Year lost to OFBO 1-5. Why are we pointing this out? A lot of people were confused why 8th Year was in Div 3 instead of Div 2. I feel like it's been explained enough to this point, but if this is your first time hearing it, let me explain. 8th Year had 4 players on their roster when we were seeding them, and we originally seeded them in Div 2, comfortably in Div 2. One of their players came out with a twit longer saying they are retiring from competitive Splatoon. We reached out to that player, does that mean, and we're like, does that mean you're not playing in Luti? And they said yes. So we are stuck in this situation of, where the heck do we put this team that only has 3 players on it? Where do you seed a team that has only 3 players on it? We knew they were getting a sub, but we didn't know who their sub was, and we had to put them somewhere to get the divs out. So it came down to a point of, okay, let's put them in Div 3, which is where they are now. And the player that retired tweeted out something like, wow, they put us in Div 3. I'm really glad I retired now. This is a joke, or this would be embarrassing to be in Div 3 or something like that. And that was annoying. That was really annoying because it helps spread misinformation and not without like a true understanding of what's going on behind the scenes. When people just take knee-jerk reactions like that, and I've criticized people for calling out low ink. Specifically, there was a low ink where somebody said 80% of teams in Group A had alpha bracket experience when that wasn't true. In that Pacific Low Inc., the correct number was like 47.6. So when people spread misinformation like that to make an organization look bad, even though they don't have the full information, that's why they're saying things like that, it's annoying. But it also means that if you're the retired player, you're writing a check for some other team to cash. And unfortunately for Aether, I don't think it's really fair to pick on them for losing this 1-1 to 5. But all eyes are going to be on Aether because somebody wrote a check for them and made them cash it. And they didn't pull it out right here. Now, Aether could be the second best team in all of Div 3. And OFBO could just be the first best team. Or the best team in all of Div 3. We won't know. We'll have to go back and see how the season plays out. But that's something I wanted to point out because people were really confused why Aether was in Div 3. That's why, and it seems like we put him in the right spot. Sticking with Div 3, I think a lot of you saw this match, or at least heard about it, so I want to talk about it. Port Raccoon beat the Crustacean Crusaders 4-4. I'm sorry, 5-3. This one was controversial, and I want to discuss it. So, Port Raccoon DC'd at some point during this set, and then used their replay. And then I believe it was one of the tower control games. I don't know what specifically. It's hard to look up this information because they were in help desk trying to get into clarification from staff. And so many of you, I don't understand this. If you're not on staff for a tournament, why do you answer questions in help desk? Like, why? Like, apply to be on staff if that's what you're going to do, because all you're doing is just like cluttering things for people who can actually give legit answers to these things. I digress. At some point on a tower control game, from what I've gathered, is that somebody on Port Raccoon DC'd, or it looked like Roundy from the Crusaders DC'd from Port Raccoon's end. Regardless, somebody was on tower, I believe for Port Raccoon, that was like a ghost. Have you ever been in a lobby where like somebody DC'd from your perspective but not somebody else's? And that person is still like some people can see that player that DC'd, but others can't. So like there's basically a ghost running around the map and you have no idea where it is. You can't kill it, and I don't think they can kill you, but they can affect the objective. So like one player for Port Raccoon was just riding the tower, and the Crusaders couldn't do anything about it because it was a ghost. They can't kill it. So they replayed that one, but I believe the concern was, hey, Port Raccoon already DC'd once. That game counts for us because of their issue. And I think the official ruling for it was Luti said it was the Crusaders' fault that happened. And I was so confused about that, and so many people were as well. A controversial set, but I mean, some of these things is so... It's so hard to kind of pinpoint down. And this happened at one point in Low Inc. where it's like, okay, this, like, how does an entire team DC at one point, but it's not a host issue or a lobby issue? It like sometimes there's so much jank in a Splatoon lobby that it's hard to pinpoint who's at fault for these kinds of situations. Just from, I don't have all the information, but just from an outsider perspective, I feel like Luti got it right by just saying replay the match altogether. Again, I'm missing some context that I know some people were heavily passionate about this. And if I was playing in that set, I would have some pretty heated opinions about how that should have gone down. But just from a TO perspective, if something like that happened in Low Inc., I would probably just suggest they would get replayed anyways. Ultimately, Port Raccoon ended up winning the set 5-3. And I guess that's all I really have to say about that. I'm pointing it out because I know a lot of you saw that. But yeah, that was so bizarre. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like that. I've been in lobbies and tournaments where there were ghosts, but never to an extent of like, well, the team had already DC'd, so I didn't know how that played out. A couple of matches I want to point out in Div 4 before we move right along. First off, a couple of teams in Div 4, more than a couple of teams in Div 4, were not super happy that they were in Div 4 and felt like they were in Div 3. I talked about this. The price to pay to get onto the Div 3 bus was way, way more expensive exponentially than the price to get onto the Div 4 bus, and ultimately a lot of people ended up getting left out of Div 3. Loving Memory of EXO and Fractured were the two teams that came to mind that could definitely be up there in the Div 3 echelon. And I think a couple of them kind of joked on Twitter about, we're in Div 4. This is so funny. San Diego Esports. Somebody forgot to tell these guys that they were supposed to lose to Loving Memory of EXO. So I think we should let them know, hey, San Diego, you guys need to go back and play that set and lose because you're not supposed to be beating a team 5-2. My goodness. And I watched this set. I did. And it was a pretty dominant 5-2 win, as close to as dominant 5-2 win as you can get. The San Diego won game 1 by KO. They lost the next two games, so it came down to like EXO had the lead on them in the set, and then San Diego just flipped the switch and just won the next 4 games. I think most of them were by KO. It looked ugly. It was looking really brutal at some points, and that was when I tweeted out, okay, I need to put San Diego in my top 10 somewhere. These guys are pretty good. So there you go. Congratulations, San Diego, on that win. Definitely worth pointing out. The Splatarians also got a win against Fractured, 5-3. I didn't personally see anybody from Fractured complain about getting in Div 4, but I do know they were one of the teams we were debating sliding into that last spot in Div 3. Splatarians was a team, I think I had to make the case for the Splatarians to be in Div 5, actually, because I think originally they were in Div 6, and I was like, whoa, these guys have been popping off in low link. They deserve to be in Div 5 here. So you're talking about one of the last teams to get into Div 5, or one of the last teams to get into Div 4, and one of the worst teams left. You guys know what I'm talking about. One of the best Div 4 teams versus one of the worst Div 4 teams. And the worst beat the best 5-3 in week 1. Yikes. We talk about this matchup, though. This is definitely a hunter versus hunted. Sometimes we see this a lot. It's always the teams that are the first ones left out of a div that underperform in the div that they play in. Maybe they don't take it so seriously. Maybe they don't. Maybe they think they can just walk right through it. Maybe they're just not motivated because winning a div they didn't want isn't really going to mean anything to them. These other teams are taking advantage of that, though. Hats off to San Diego and Splatarians for those ones. Now, the stuff you guys are actually here for. By the way, I just said that eventually I'm going to say something that pisses somebody off and they say something negative about me. I just said like 5 or 6 things about specific people. So that you put yourself out there and people talk crap about you. You got to be able to take it. All right. You just got to. Otherwise, get out of the kitchen and let someone else do it. Looking at Div 5, and this is where we go to the, let's see what this looks like. Oh gosh, chat is way off. Let's see if we can fix that. Bring chat down a bit. It's still going to run off over the top there, but hey, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm sorry. You can still at least somewhat see chat, and you can still somewhat see me, and you can see what I'm actually talking about. So let's, nobody said this is a low budget production. All right. Let's not read up too much into it, but we are starting. Is this the Americas? This is not. Now we're in the Americas. So we're starting with group 5 in the Americas. First off, I said the Deep Fried Octolings would win this group. I wasn't sold on them winning the entire division just yet, but I felt like they were one of the better teams. I also said Access Denied was a wild card team, and we hadn't seen them in a while, so that makes them kind of scary. This is a good win. This is a statement win for them. 5-4. I saw the Octolings kind of tweeted out how to deal with pressure. I would assume Luti set, this is the kind of pressure that we're talking about, especially going to a game 9. Somebody have to win. And game 9 was brutal this week. Humpback, splat zones. He who brings the most booyah bombs wins. And I would assume Access Denied just brought more there, but that's a great win for them. Eclipse dropped from this tournament. They also dropped from Low Ink this same weekend, so I don't really know what's up with those guys, but they're done here. And Dark Rain, the team that made beta bracket but got bumped up to alpha bracket, not surprising that they got a 5-1 win here against this team. So what do we know about Group 1 going forward? Well, the Octolings did get a win in this one because the team forfeit. I don't know why round 4 and 5 sometimes show up and sometimes don't. Maybe it's because Challenge is sending all their power to send these stupid ads to pop up in my face nonstop. But the real question here, the real interesting thing here is going to be this game 5 right here in round 2. Dark Rain versus Access Denied. The two teams that got true wins are going to be facing off right off the bat. If you're the Octolings, you still control your own future. Obviously, I'm going to be saying that a lot over the course of today. But that is a good, they're still in a good situation. And again, another thing I want to point out, tiebreaker is how many games you win when you lose. So if you are going to lose, the good news for the Octolings is they lost in game 9. That's going to help them out way more than losing 5-1 like Uwumi and Dark did to Dark Rain here. So Octolings still keeping their hopes alive, but Access Denied claiming if they take care of Dark Rain at today or this week, they're legit going to be they're going to be in very comfortably in the driver's seat to go 5-0 in this group. Group B. I did watch the 3 a.m. Dreamscape match, even though it was 5-0. Evie sent me the link, and I told Evie, I'm not going to watch this because it's 5-0 and I don't have time for it. But then 3 a.m. made alpha bracket in this past Low Ink, which was very surprising. And I was like, okay, wow, that alpha bracket team lost 5-0 to Dreamscape. I want to watch this now. So I watched it because I didn't know anything about Dreamscape. They are a hyper aggressive team. They use Brush, Octoshot, InZap, and have like a semi-anchor squeezer. And they looked really solid and really aggressive. Dreamscape's a fun team to watch. So and beating an alpha bracket team 5-0 is impressive and notable. So Dreamscape has my attention now for sure. Riot got a good win against Karma. Karma made alpha bracket as well this past month. And did decently well in it. So Riot over here getting the win. Riot's now going to be taking on Dreamscape. We're going to learn a lot about these two teams right here in this matchup. Obviously, I talked a little bit about Inkstrike Inklings and Enigma because they played on Tuesday of week 1 instead of waiting for a normal time like most people should. But still, this was a fantastic set as well. Enigma going to be playing the loser Karma. I like Karma in this matchup just because they're an alpha bracket team. Enigma coming off of a underperforming weekend for them, I would say. And this is a good opportunity for 3 a.m. to get a bounce back right here. Again, we talked about everyone controls their destiny still at this point, especially when nobody has dropped. So 3 a.m. has an opportunity to get back into this group here by knocking off Inkstrike Inklings. Otherwise, the Inklings are going to go up 2-0 and be set with a date with Dreamscape. So I would keep an eye on this match right here and this match right here because we're going to learn a lot about these teams from that one. Group C. What can you say about this one? A couple of 5-0s. And Lost Inklings and Labyrinth X used their mulligan. Again, using your mulligan week 1 is bad. That means you are setting yourself up for a very rough next 5 weeks. If you can't get your match in week 1, yeah, you're gonna have a fun Luti for the rest of the month. But regardless, Citrus took care of business against CIA as we would expect them to do. Seki took care of business against Killjoys, as I would expect them to do. Citrus did really well. one of their players was in my chat on Monday saying they were going to 5-0 this entire group. Oops. That's, well, if they are, honestly, I think they could if they get past Seki this week. This is going to be in my opinion, this is going to be the group championship match right here. Seki didn't play in low ink because we don't allow them to play in low ink. They've done well in past tournaments where we felt like you guys might be too good. They're Div 5 now, so I don't know if that would change. But still, Citrus popped off in low ink, but again, Seki can't play in low ink. So it's one thing to beat teams that are around your skill level and being forced to play into a tournament with teams that are above your skill level. So we'll find out a lot about these two teams right here. LabX and Lost Inklings, we don't know anything about them yet other than what they do traditionally in tournaments. But again, this is not a tournament. This is a Luti. A little bit of a different animal. Group D, I've said this is my favorite group, and there's a lot of interesting things going on here. I did watch the ITAP versus Krill Streak matchup, and the final result did not surprise me. It did surprise me that Krill Streak decided to bring out a tent. We talked to Mizuno on Saturday, and she was surprised they brought out a tent as well. So we had tent versus tent action here in this matchup, and Gasical just getting the little bit of a better end of Krill Streak here. But still, ITAP, my question was, are they really the number one team if we haven't seen them in a while? They seem to be picking up right where they left off in their last break, which is good because now they got to take on the current beta bracket champion. We have a beta versus beta bracket champion, ITAP versus Mahi Mahi Monsoon, in what is to be the marquee matchup of all of Div 4 that is going to be this Saturday. I'm definitely going to watch that, if not live, a VOD for sure. But this... I'm hesitant to say that this is going to be the group title match right here because Amnesia is still kind of lurking around in the wings. They beat Tooniverse 3-5, and this is what I'm talking about, Luti being a little bit different. Tooniverse traditionally has been beating Amnesia the past couple, maybe the past 3 tournament matches they played in. Amnesia forgot about that and decided to just beat them right here 5-3. So that's a good win for Amnesia, and it's a win they desperately need in this group with ITAP and Mahi Mahi Monsoon lurking around. Now, if Amnesia wants to make a playoff spot, they don't have to beat both of those two teams. They just have to beat ITAP or Mahi Mahi Monsoon, and they should be in a good situation right there. If they lost to Tooniverse, now Tooniverse is in a situation where they got to beat both of these teams basically straight up, and that's going to be hard to do. They can beat one, but beating 2 back-to-back is it's not a comfortable situation to be in. But again, all eyes are going to be on ITAP and Mahi Mahi this weekend, and see if Krill Streak can maybe bounce back. It takes some maybe take a game away from Amnesia, if not a whole match, at some point. Boom! 34 minutes. We got some ways to go. We're mowing these things down. Div 5 World Group now. TZK almost played in low ink, but ended up dropping. We verified them because they're a Div 5 team, and we didn't really know a whole heck a lot about those guys when we were verifying them, but yikes. As the number 6 seed here, they won 5-1 over Sea Strivers. If we were to talk briefly about seeding, yes, I was involved in what divs got placed in what, but what actual seed you get isn't really something that the seeding council had a crazy amount of say in. Like, we did list out like our 1 through 48 teams in each div or whatever, but what seed you actually get kind of depends on a couple of other factors, mainly where you live, what teams you ask to be matched up with. So like you'll see a lot of 6 versus 1 matchups where they're upsets. Sometimes that is an upset. Sometimes that's just the seed you got, and so don't put a crazy amount of stock into some of these seeds is what I'm getting at, because there are other factors outside of just where we thought you would be, why you got what div or seed that you got. Regardless, TZK, nice win over Sea Strivers here. Mission Instinct, the Alpha Bracket team, beat Ragnarok. The Beta Bracket team from last month on Link makes sense, 5-1 here. And Fukatsu Angels, who had a very good low ink, A very good low ink, a surprising one, and it's not a surprise because they beat Sandstorm Tsunami here 5-0. The matchup to keep an eye on for is number 4 right here, Mission Instinct and Fukatsu Angels. A couple of alpha bracket teams from last weekend going to be matching up here. I'm not convinced this is a group championship because TZK kind of scares me right here. Not going to lie, TZK might be pretty good. And we're not going to find out much about TZK until about round 4 or 5. So it's going to be a couple weeks before they play Mission Instinct and Fukatsu Angels, where we get a good test to see how good they actually are. But for this week is concerned, Mission Instinct and the Angels will take on each other. We'll see what comes out of that. Group B. Play your games. Now, when we get to Div 7, it's going to look like a mess. But come on, guys. What do you want me to say? The only game that happened was Sweepy Shields taking on Shinobi Squad. Now, Shinobi Squad has made Alpha Bracket in the past. We haven't seen them in low ink in a while. And I think this is the same Shinobi Squad we saw, even though they got Disnarium on their name now. The Sweepy Seals, though, I felt like this is what I was talking about with seeding. I felt like they weren't the second best team in this group. But they did see a 3-5 result. You can't just accidentally get 3 wins. That shows you got to be at least somewhat competitive here. For the rest of this group, though, I don't know what to say because these guys don't play their matches. So hats off to these two for at least getting your games in. But we're going to have more to say about this group as the weeks go on, I guess. Group C, Zero Ink. Here's what's really another kind of controversial thing. And I don't have a exact thought about it. I'm just going to think it out as I'm talking about this. Zero Ink beat Neptune's Envoy 5-2. That doesn't surprise me. I said I didn't like Neptune at number 1, and I felt like it was a disrespect for Zero Ink. Zero Ink is not one of the teams that's borderline Div 5, Div 6. They are a really good team. And beating Neptune's Envoy 5-2 proves that. None of this is going to matter, though, because after beating them, Zero Ink dropped from Luti. So here's what's interesting. If you drop, obviously, everybody gets a free win against you. As you see, all these teams get free wins. However, since Zero Ink just screwed over Neptune by beating them first before dropping, Neptune still gets the L. So basically, Neptune lost to the team who is going to lose every single match they play. Technically, if this was Swiss, their opponent win percentage would just tank like nothing else. But it's group, so it's all right. I guess I don't really know how forfeits work for like tiebreakers as far as like how many personal games you win, but still Zero Ink really screwed over Neptune here. The question should be, should Neptune get the win because Zero Ink dropped from the tournament? Luti staff said no because you lost straight up. I guess that's fair, but at the same time, none of these other teams are going to get the opportunity to lose to Zero Ink, so that's just unfortunate. I have nothing else to comment about that. Spirit Incorporated beating Checkmate 5-2. No surprise there. Spirit Incorporated is showing they are a top 10 low ink team. And I think they don't care about winning that Gamma bracket a couple of months ago because they're doing things far more impressive than that going forward here. Don't know anything about these guys. Squid Society, I've said they're sneaky good. So I really want to see them start playing some sets. The unfortunate thing is their first match isn't till week 3 because they're rescheduled this one and they get the free win against Zero Ink. So it's going to be a while before we see the Society in Luti action. But they're going to have their work cut out for them in their first match that they play against Spirit Incorporated. Group D, the group of death. Everybody says, my group is stacked. Well, yeah, everybody's group is stacked. And the only group I actually take seriously when they say their group is stacked is Group D. Squid Knights took down Dream Knights. I said Dream Knights were going to run through this group because I felt like they were really good. Squid Knights are still a really good team as well, though. And keep in mind, this is another flip result. Squid Knights lost to Dream Knights. When they last played, it was a couple of low inks. So, well, it's been a couple of months since they played. I get that. But still, Squid Knights, I said it was disrespectful to put them at number 6 here. And they took that to heart, beating the number 1 team and the team I thought would win this whole group straight up. Dream Knights. I'm sure this was just a medieval battle of all sorts but it turns out Squids beat Dreams in the night category. I did watch the Ink Illuminatis versus Wiggly Phantom set because the Wiggly Phantom stream is clean, bro. Those guys are clean with their streams. But Ink Illuminati is a little bit more cleaner with their gameplay. Take the win here 5-1. This is can you say it's a close 5-1? I mean, those games were competitive, but I don't know. I don't think you can lose 4 games to 1. 5 games to 1 and still be considered close. But if they were to play again, I wouldn't be crazy surprised if the Phantoms took some more games away from them this time around. But Ink Illuminati looked pretty good, and they're going to have a matchup, an interesting matchup here against the Dream Knights, again, who lost and might have something to prove here. Try to even up this set and make both these teams 1-1. Kraken Warriors Royal Court. I did watch this one right before the tournament started, or right before the stream started. Because it was on, I believe they posted a link in the Luti server. So a nice 5-1 result here for Kraken Warriors against Royal Court. And I guess the other game that I'm kind of curious about is this one right here, Wiggly Phantoms versus Kraken Warriors. Can the Kraken Warriors repeat what they did here? We're going to find out a lot about these two teams in this matchup here, where they really stand. And we're going to learn a lot about the whole group as a whole based off of this matchup, because sometimes you see these 5-1 results and they're not really comparable until those two teams play against each other. So the team that only won 1 game versus the team that won 5, if the Phantoms find a way to flip this one around here, then this group is totally going to be up in the air for anybody. Group 6, America. Am I on the right one here? Yes. Okay, we're good. And this is taking a lot longer than I was expecting. Rising Hope. I said they're not the 6th best team in this group. I said they were one of the best teams in this group. And look, they swept the number 1 seed. Once again, seeding for this doesn't really matter. A 5-0, 6 over number 1, in theory, should not be happening. Rising Hope doesn't care, though. They got something to prove. Ink Eye, very good win, 5-1 over Kingmaker. It's always nice. Ink Eye, really excited how they did in this past Low Ink. And had a good weekend beating Kingmaker 5-1 here as well. Dream It 5-2 over Freelancing Takoyaki, I believe that is, who now gets the pleasure of playing against Rising Hope. In fact, all of these matchups are 1-0 teams over 0-1 teams. So we could have a situation here where 3 teams are 2-0 and 3 teams are 0-2 heading into week 3. Because it didn't look like these matches were crazy competitive here. We'll find out. If there's some more matches, if there's more like 1-1 teams in this group next week, then that shows there's going to be a little bit of parity here. If not, then we can clearly identify who the top 3 teams are and who the bottom 2 teams that are likely not going to make playoffs are. But some chances here for some redemption, but ultimately on paper seems like it won't be the most exciting week in this group. That comes down the road. Group B. Outcast Ninjas versus Morpho Knights 5-0. Man, I said I might have overhyped Morpho Knights a little bit. They still have some time to bounce back here. They'll play Cracked, who got a 5-4 win against Hydra here. So this is a bounce back opportunity for Morpho. But Outcast Ninjas, I told you these guys would be good. Not only did they go through this weekend and make second place in Gamma Bracket, their second place in Gamma Brackets in their team's history. But they flexed on the Morpho Knights here, going 5-0. I think we can put them, well, I think we should put them in the driver's seat to be the number 1 seed in this in this group. If it wasn't for Booyah X playing out of their minds this entire week. Yes, they made Alpha Bracket as a Div 6 team. That is impressive. Made it straight up. Didn't make it because somebody dropped. They flat out earned it. And Cephadonts here fell to them 5-0. With Booyah X, I know Parias has been subbing for them and is on their roster, but I actually did watch this because this was on the LSL stream, and Parias didn't play in that. So this is just Booyah X's straight up roster getting this 5-0 win here. And now they take on a Hydra team. If they get this win against Hydra, again, we don't really know much about these two other than they're really close with each other. We'll learn more about them for this week. But if Booyah X can get this win against Hydra and can get a win comfortably against it, then yeah, I think we're gonna have a Booyah X Outcast Ninja matchup down here at the end of the season. That's gonna have a lot on the line, which is something I wasn't really expecting going into this group. Group C. The Insurance Agency really popped off in beta bracket this past month, and Surf and Turf, a team we haven't seen in a while, flexed on them here. Or not flexed, that's still a close win, but a 5-3 win shows just how good Surf and Turf has been since the last time that we saw them. Mirkwood Falcons being the mystery team here, get a nice win against Inkvaders 5-2, and Broken Controller Gaming, who won Gamma Brackets over the Outcast Ninjas, took a nice 5-3 win over Clownfish, another team that made Gamma Bracket in the same month. So Insurance Agency, the beta team, going to be taking on the Gamma Champion in this Game 5 matchup here. This is the only one for this week that I'm crazy interested in to see how the result of this is. If BCG gets this win, then it's going to set up a showdown with them against Surf and Turf in week 4. That's going to have a lot of implications as to, these would be the two teams I think are going to make playoffs, but which team gets that number 1 seed versus the number 2 seed might come down to right here. Group D. Radioactive got the 5-3 win against System of a Splashdown. I'm surprised that's as close as it is. That's a good 5-3 loss for System of a Splashdown. Vaporwave getting the 5-0 win against Fly by Night. Don't know much about Fly by Night, but that is a good 5-0 result for them. And a good bounce back for them from what they've shown in Low Ink from last month. They've had a good week so far. Wipeout Punks with the 5-1 win over Shiver Me Inklings kind of surprises me. But it's all, again, what you do in tournaments isn't always applicable to what happens here in Luti sets. None of these matches are crazy interesting to me for week 2 here. I believe it's all teams that won versus teams that lost. I think Radioactive versus Shiver Me Inklings is an opportunity the Inklings have an opportunity to tie this at 1-1 and kind of split these records here, but I would expect Vaporwave and Wipeout Punks to keep their streaks going. And see more action from those guys down the road. World Div 6. It's hard to tell what's going on here. It's really hard to tell what's going on here. Was this just a bad week for Nightshade? They had a bad weekend from their standards. I saw them tweet out for Low Ink, but was this just a bad win or a bad loss, or is this Booyah Ghost just that good? Luckily, we are going to get to find out because Booyah Ghost is playing Gravity, who beat Irida 5-1 earlier in the set. So two teams with some very comfortable wins are going to play off against each other. And we're going to learn a lot about these two teams going forward. Nightshade in a good situation to bounce back. They play the other team that lost in Inception in Irida. We'll learn some things about them as well. I was kind of confused about this group because I didn't know a whole heck a lot of these guys, but Booyah Ghost, this is a significant win for them and the opportunity to keep that significantness going down the road. Group B. Tinta Shrimp Tacos won 5-0. That does not surprise me. They are a really good team. Untitled Duck Crew got a nice 5-4 win over Nightmares. I've said Untitled Duck Crew, you need to keep an eye on these guys. They could be the next big new thing coming out of nowhere and improving a lot. A 5-4 win can do a lot for your team there. The problem is now they got to play Tinta Shrimp Taco. So if Untitled Duck Crew can get the win here, I'd be really surprised, and we can put them on the map of legit teams to do really well in Div 6. Otherwise, the other match to kind of keep an eye on here is Nightmares versus squad Azura Cielo. Regardless, Nightmares with a close loss. This team with a win. We're going to learn some more about these two guys. Inkcraft Colts beating a team like Inkcraft Colt is significant because they're a very experienced team. But they're also going to be taking on Myopsidus, a team that has made beta bracket in the past, I believe. So this will be a good matchup for all these teams, but I'm definitely watching this number 6 matchup, the Tacos versus the Ducks. Speaking of the Tenta Shrimp, can someone explain this to me? Are the Tenta Shrimps like a clan of some sort? Because there's 2 Tenta Shrimp teams here, and the Tacos have traditionally been more significant than the Cocktails, but the Cocktails here got a nice 5-1 win over the number 1 seed, Cuttlefish Bay. Bamboo Dragons got the win that you would expect them to get. I feel like they're going to be a legit contender to win this group. Don't know anything about these 2 teams, but Pazilantia beat Cavejaw Pisco Subordo. I think I just got canceled on Twitch for reading that out loud. Got a 5-0 win against those guys. So Bamboo passed their first test, and Tenta Shrimp Taco or Cocktails prove that they should be tested. And they're gonna get tested. We're gonna learn a lot from these 2 teams right here. I'm saying that a lot, I know, but we're in a learning process for a lot of these things. Bamboo Dragons get to test Cuttlefish Bay to see if they really are the number 1 team in this group or not, and they just need to bounce back. But still, huge win here for the Cocktails. For Group D, team name guys, please. Got to win 5-3 over Interlinks. 60% Fish Puns got to win over a team, yet again, that they should not be beating. I don't know what's going on with those guys, but they found the other 40% they've been missing this past week. I said hashtag team should have won this group, and they lost 5-2. This is a very significant L that they took here. So we're going to learn. This could be potentially the championship match right here this week. 60% Fish Puns versus team name guys, please. This is a matchup you would like to see in week 5, but now we're seeing it here in week 2. Do not count out hashtag team though. This could have just been a bad week. We could see them bounce back here. They play a tough team in Sorrow, who got a 5-0 win over Black Squids. So if they get the win here, and then they get the other win against Black Squids, who is worse than Sorrow, clearly, and then they play Interlinks, who lost the team name guys, please. You can see them building up momentum into that week 5 matchup against team name guys, please. But if they don't get the win here, it's going to come down to these 2 teams who should be able to take those 2 spots, regardless of who wins that matchup. Div 7. Yeah, water. Yeesh. Div 7. America Group. What is there to say right here? It's 5-0, 5-1, 5-0. Yikes. Okay. Div 7 is going to be a little interesting. There's going to be some weird stuff going on here in Div 7. Obviously, these matchups are a little bit close. One thing I do want to point out, Pixel Inc. was originally the number 1 seed in this group. They have dropped from Luti, and instead 8 Ball, which is a new team, got put into their spot. So they got put into the number 1 spot because that's the spot they were taking. So that might play a factor into why Ink Bashers, the number 6 team, got this 5-0 win. We'll learn. The good news here, though, is that this number 5 game right here is against 2 teams that just won. So this will be a good matchup, Ink Bashers versus Deep Sea Cephalopods. But Powder Inc. I still feel like is the comfortable favorite to win this group just because they're a strong LSL team. Group B. I watched this set. The one set that actually got played. I watched it because I like keeping an eye on the Deck Handler or Psychedelic Air Launchers, another team, another college team just about an hour north of me. So, of course, I want to keep up with them. I will say this. The Deck Handlers looked really strong. They had a really good Dapples player who seemed to do whatever they wanted to against PAL. I will say this, though. I liked what I saw out of PAL. Even though this is a 5-0 loss, I really liked what I saw out of PAL. I feel like they got the right weapons that they should be using. I feel like they're in a good environment of people that can show them how to play the game. I think PAL's only issue is they need to play the game more. You looked at some of their ranks and you thought, okay, these guys they're just lacking in mechanical skill. They got all the other intangibles. They just need to play the game more. So keep an eye on PAL 2, 3, 4 months down the road. I think they might be a legit good team. But right now, the deck handler is obviously just better, and we don't know anything else about these other teams. I believe Astro dropped and Uncracked took their spot. So other than that, these guys are not going to be having a fun time in about week 5 or 6 when they need to get all these matches in at the same time. Did this match really play? Yeah, these guys played yesterday. Screw the Meta and Convergence. So Screw the Meta was able to get the first win they needed of the season after losing to Typhoon 4-5. So that shows you Inkzuka Institution, who is also previously known as Multiply Clan, got the 5-0 win against Convergence. So Convergence just kind of playing some tough teams here. But it's good. Week 2 is where you kind of puzzle piece things together, and it starts to make sense. I was like, okay, this team beat that team by a close score, but it wasn't close in this one, so that means that team can beat this team. So what does that puzzle piece tell us? It's going to come down to Novice Clams and still Multiply Clan, Inksuka Institution right here. This matchup's going to be good because both these teams won, but I am still convinced that Novice Clan, again, experience pays off over the long run. Yes, they got a 5-2 loss to Just Gooder. It happens. You can still bounce back from this, though. I'm not ready to write off Novice Clams just yet. But if Multiply Clan could get the win here, they should be in comfortable position just based off of these other scores. Group D. Sowillo dropped. Oh no, and it doesn't look like they're going to be replaced by anybody. So Team Delta got the free win. Mystical Ink beat Toxic Ink. I guess ink that's mystical is better than ink that could kill you. So they win 5-0, and then Forge Prefect. I said it rightly this time. Look, sometimes I can read correctly. Okay, you don't have to get on me for that. They lost 5-1 to the Demon Hunters. The only thing that interests me in this group is not anything that takes place next week. It's what takes place in Game 9 right here. Mystical Ink versus Demon Hunters, because they seem pretty, as far as the information we know, these two teams seem a little bit on a different spectrum from those other teams. So it'll be a while before we get to see this matchup, though. And I need to start pulling up Div 8. But we're moving on to Div 7, the World. Oh, man. I really hoped we could have gotten Nebula Inc. somewhere else. I don't know why, but it seems like they're just going to have to play out this in Div 7. Somebody asked me, I saw the highlighted message, who's going to win Div 7? It's Nebula Inc. We can just give them the trophy right now. Like, honestly, they're not a Div 7 team. However, I will say this. I did say the Slashers seem to be pretty good, and they do have a matchup against Nebula Inc. coming up here. So this will be, we'll keep an eye on this. Maybe Slashers can take a game or two away from them. They take the set from them. That would be hype, but I don't really see that happening. They got to play a tough team over here. Sparkling Sea, who I've learned was actually the reincarnation of the Alpha Squids. I learned that on my just solo queue stream yesterday. I believe, I forgot who. Maybe it's the Light Jr. who's in chat right now. Somebody told me they were Sparkling Sea or Alpha Squids. Nice win against Guys. Nice win here against that team. They play Cephalopop, who didn't have... we don't really know. This is not fair. This is not fair to say Cephalopop's bad. They played a monster team. We'll actually know how good Cephalopop is going up against Sparkling Sea here. But Slashers, I still feel like, are the team that should be comfortably winning this group's second runner-up spot. Group B. Galaxy Inc. dropped. Unfortunate. Starfall got a win against Berries. I'm pretty high on Starfall, so it makes sense that they were able to get this win 5-1 here. Damage Inc. and Hell Kings. Ooh, a very nice match. I would love to see the VOD of this if anybody has that floating around. 5-4 matchup. Looks like it'd be pretty good, pretty entertaining. Damage Inc. after this heartbreaking or this heart-pounding win, luckily gets the week off because they get a free win against Galaxy Kings before they take on Berries. And then Bit Clam, who we don't really know a whole lot about because they got a win in week 1 as well. So it could come down to this Damage Inc. Starfall matchup at the end here. But I am interested in game 6 right here of Starfall versus Bitcoin, or BitClam. Why do they call them Bitcoin? We're going to find out more about BitClam because they are still the number 1 seed. So we'll figure out why they got that number 1 seed right there, and they're going to be taking on this tough Starfall team. But I still feel like this matchup at the end of week 5 is going to be entertaining. Group C. Version 2.0 probably is not a Div 6 team, especially with what they've been showing, not just in Little Squid League, but more impressively what they showed this past weekend in Gamma Bracket of Low Inc. Getting the 5-0 win here over Baby Minus X. Don't know a lot about those teams, but I feel good about version 2.0. They get the free win against Tentacool Splatoon, so they get the extra week off, and then they play another team that lost to Rising Tide 5-0, and then they play Ship Shape, who we don't know a lot about because another team dropped, and blah, 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 blah. So version 2.0 might just have a free ride until they play Rising Tide, who got this 5-0 win, which is good for version 2.0. They should have some pretty easy Luti season, stress-free Luti season for the most part, just because other people dropped, and that's not really their fault. Group D, I said the Ink Reapers were a DSB team. That is basically a German Luti league, if you want to consider it as that. And I said experience in a tournament series like Luti is going to pay off here, and they got the nice win against the Night Logic team 5-0. Don't know a whole heck of a lot about the other teams, but the Ink Reapers, we are going to find out if they are the winner. They have an opportunity to win this group in the next 2 weeks because they play Splatrix, who won their matchup in week 2, and then they play Free Painters, who won their matchup against Royal Flames in week 3. So they play winners back to back, and if they take care of those guys, then the Reapers are going to win this group. Again, I feel like that experience that they have is going to pay off here, and it already paid off in week 1. Hui, one more div. And I don't have this prepped yet, so let's get Div 8 up without making it too awkward. It's hard to search for groups just straight off a challenge. You gotta get like tournaments, sort by created at, I've found has been much easier to do. Hey, thanks for stopping by. Make sure you catch this on YouTube for sure. VOD will be up in about an hour or so. Just change the 7 or 8 in URL. Oh, that is pretty simple, isn't it? What's up, Brock? Unfortunately, I'm not talking about the Velvet Kingdom, I believe, is your team. But we are looking at Div 8, Group A of the Americas. Div 8's scary. We know literally nothing about Div 8. But we're going to take a poke at it anyways and see if there's something I can talk about here. For Div 8, Group A Americas. If anybody in chat knows anything about these teams, let it be known. I'll go back and look at chat later. But as far as what this is, let's just read off the names. Zero InQ Gaming, Vegas Splat High Class, no, that's not Cephalo, that's Cephalopood, I believe, Cephalopod Squad, and Crossfire. My goodness, these are something else. Game 5, I feel like is, wait, no, I'm reading the wrong thing here. Yeah, I don't really know what to say about this. I'm looking at my notes here, and I feel like I had something here. Do the winners play the losers? That team lost. That team won. Okay, so these two teams are 5-0, and they do play each other. Kinsa Fire and Vegas Splat. So maybe this will be a critical matchup here. But other than that, I don't really know what else to say about this one. Overthink got a tough loss, or a 5-0 loss to Cross to Vegas, and this Cephalopodidus squad team got a loss to Crossfire. So those two teams getting to match up against each other. Hopefully this will be more competitive for those two teams. It'll be interesting. But man, yeah, I don't really know what to say about that. For Group B, oh my gosh, this is such a mess. This matchup didn't get played. And then there's a bye. I think this bye might be the a Squids and Pants team, like basically the All-Star Squad team. They got put in Div 8, but I think they got bumped up to Div 4. I think they took another team spot that dropped. So I think that's what this bye here is. Or it could have just been 5 teams in here already. I'm not totally sure. But Puffer Party. Puffer Fish Stingray had a great set here, this 5-4 result. So that's good to see that the one game that actually got played was pretty close. Stingray is going to be playing a team that we don't know much about because they didn't get to play, and Pufferfish is playing a team we don't know a lot about because they didn't play. So that's kind of frustrating that we don't really know a whole heck of a lot about these teams going into it, but still, at least these guys had some fun here. Group C, Lumastars. These guys actually signed up for Low Ink and they dropped right before it. So if they had played in that Low Ink, though, it would have given us more information. Because it's like this Lumastar team could be like crazy good, or they could just be not, and we don't really know until these teams like play in other tournaments and give us some more information about that for context. Like this could be a good 5-0 win, or it could just have been. Like, these two teams could be really good for all we know. We'll need to spend some more time. They get the Senior Sigma plays Bottled Water, who didn't get to play against Deep Sea Krakens. And Team Legato, this is an actual team. They played in March Low Ink and went 2-4. So they get to, we don't really know. It'll take a couple weeks for us to learn this group, but there are still at least some brand name teams that we're at least somewhat familiar and know that tournaments like Low Ink exist. But for Bottled Water and Deep Sea Krakens, we'll have to wait a little bit to get them out. The World section of Div 8. 5-0, 5-0, 5-1. Hey, at least everybody in this group got to end up playing their match here. Let's see. They play a team that lost. They play a team that lost. And that means they played a team that lost. So everything here, another situation. This could be another 5-0, 5-0, 5-1 kind of group going into this one, just because the teams that all won play teams that all lost. So if there's any like 1-1 teams in standings after week 2, that's going to give us a better indicator of how impressive these 5-0 wins were at the beginning here. But on paper, just looking at these teams, it looks like it could be just another 3 teams 2-0 and 3 teams 0-2, how this matchup kind of works out here. Rooting for Nintendo Destiny. Always nice to see Destiny teams of some sort. Group B. Just one match. Oh no, this is another mess. Another match didn't get played. Another team that dropped. And Great Barrier get a 5-3 win over the Squishy Squad. I kind of like that name. The Squishy Squad. They lost to Great Barrier 5-0. Great Barrier plays Furious Thunder. We don't know anything about out. This team that couldn't play, is going to play another team they don't know anything about. And the other team we actually know something about doesn't play either because of a drop. So it's welcome to Div 8. Group C, the final group. Los Santos had a very nice matchup here. 5-4 over 5 minutes. Terran kicked rain. Royal Elite lost to Splatlands Recon Team 5-2, and Pistol Shrimp, who I believe is an actual team that has some experience. I've seen the word Pistol Shrimp around. 5-1 over Inksanity. Game 5 here is going to be the one we kind of look at because it's a matchup between 2 teams that have won. I'm sorry, Div 8, all right? We're going to learn more about you guys over the course of the season. And if anybody in Div 8 is watching this and you have information about your team, please feel free to send it to me. because I want to know more about you guys. Feel free to reach out to me on Discord at popgun #5882, Twitch at Mr_Popgun, YouTube at 25 Popgun, Twitch at Popgun25. And that is going to conclude today's episode. Yeah, that was a lot of talking. My goodness. Dang. We're going to have to come up with a better way to get through these ones. But regardless, thank you for the follow for those of you who did that. We got through it. And we're going to try to do a little bit better next time. Let's go raid somebody. Again, if you missed this stuff, I didn't talk about in depth for everything from like Div X through Div 4. We just talked a couple of matches that a lot of people in the community were talking about. The main focus was 5 through 8. But still, thank you for supporting lower level stuff, regardless. And if you have anything interesting happening to you in Luti, feel free to let me know about it. We'll talk about it next week. But we need to raid someone. Let's raid. Hey, it's Bigfoot. Hey, I want to raid that guy. Hey, it's Bigfoot. Make sure you get vaccinated when it's your turn to do so. That stuff's important. Stuff is really important.